There is some noise around Julian Lewis and USC. Is he going to remain committed, or can a program like Colorado sneak in there and flip him?
You are Locked On Buffs, your daily podcast on the Colorado Buffaloes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Buffs. I am your host, Kevin Borba. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. We are also brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day for free and available wherever you get your podcast. So thank you guys for tuning in and making me your first listen of the day. I appreciate it. Appreciate all the support that you guys give me. Let's dive in to Julian Lewis's recruitment because it is an interesting one. He is, for those of you who aren't familiar, maybe this is your first time watching the show, Julian Lewis is currently Colorado and Deion Sanders' biggest and most important quarterback recruit in the 2025 class. He's ranked as a 5-star according to On3, according to the industry ranking. ESPN and Rivals have him as a 5-star. ESPN has him as the number 2 player. Rivals has him as the number 1. 24/7 Sports and On3 used to have him as a 5-star quarterback, but they dropped him to 44 and 46 respectively during their latest ranking adjustments. So Julian Lewis is a industry ranking 5-star. Not everyone has him as a 5-star anymore. He's been committed to USC for quite a while. And I think there was a lot of sort of confusion with his recruitment just because USC was like struggling on the recruiting trail. And all of a sudden he pledges and he was the only person in the class. And it's like, okay, he buys into Lincoln Riley's vision. And then all of a sudden he's not committed to he is committed to USC, but all of a sudden there are other programs getting in the mix. And so we'll just go over his timeline. July 12th of 2023, he had a top 8. It was USC, it was Bama, it was Georgia, Oregon, FSU, Florida State, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and LSU. Moving on. He visited Alabama unofficially in July, and then about a month later committed to USC. Then he visited Georgia, took another unofficial back to Bama, saw Auburn, took an unofficial to USC, unofficial to Georgia, unofficial Ohio State, and then things get wacky. He takes an unofficial visit to Colorado in January, and all of a sudden Colorado is in the mix. Everyone's like, oh, look out, Deion Sanders is coming. They need a quarterback of the future. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders is the quarterback of the present, but Shedeur Sanders is going to the NFL after this next season. He is going to be a top 10, top 5, top 2, top 1 pick. Who knows where he'll end up, but Shedeur Sanders is probably going to be a first-round pick. We know that for sure. And so they need someone who could step in right away and play. And so you look at Colorado's quarterback room, and it's like, okay, they have Ryan Staub. They have Walter Taylor. They have the Wade twin. They have no clear answer. They have no clear path to who will be the next quarterback. And so Julian Lewis all of a sudden is showing interest in Colorado. Colorado gets him for an official visit along with Auburn, USC, and Indiana in June. And he took a picture with Shedeur Sanders, sort of handing him the proverbial keys to the program, right? But he hasn't flipped and he hasn't wavered out of his commitment. At least that's what he's been saying. And there hasn't been any expert predictions on where he's going to end up. So it's like, okay, where is this guy going, right? Is he going to flip or is he going to remain committed to USC? Well, a lot of the noise around his recruitment sort of seems like Auburn and Colorado are pushing really hard. At one point, it was between those two and USC. And all of a sudden, there was a report recently and from 24/7 Sports, and basically USC is pushing really hard for 5-star quarterback Hassan Longstreet, which if you guys aren't familiar with him, he's a 5-star, like I said, that is committed to Texas A&M. And so it's one of those things where it's like, why all of a sudden are they pushing for another quarterback if they have one committed? And so a lot of classes or a lot of coaches, they don't mind bringing in 2 quarterback classes. I don't know if that's the case for Lincoln Riley. I feel like he sort of likes to build around a quarterback, but at the same time, he's always had transfer quarterbacks. Like this will be the first season that the Lincoln Riley coaching saga outside of Spencer Rattler that he has coached a quarterback that the program recruited or inherited in his case. And that's who starts, because obviously Spencer Rattler was the only one that he recruited to Oklahoma as a high school recruit. Baker Mayfield transferred. Kyler Murray transferred. Jalen Hurts transferred. Caleb Williams started but transferred to USC. So he's always had transfer quarterback. But nonetheless, back to Hassan, the sort of sentiment from the report was that he's committed to Texas A&M, but USC was his dream school growing up, and he is currently going to school in Southern California, so that could be a close to home kind of sort of move if he wants it to be. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that go into these commitments, but he is an Inglewood native, so if he wants to stay close to home, USC could provide that option, and then obviously they will have somewhat of a clear path to the field. But it's really interesting because everyone's like, okay, so USC is chasing this guy. What does that mean for Julian? Well, I think what this means for Julian Lewis is USC is going to be ready regardless. And obviously this isn't a USC podcast. So what does it mean for Colorado? Colorado has a chance, right? That's all this means. Colorado has a chance to flip Julian Lewis. I think it's going to be harder than people realize. I know Colorado fans are extremely confident, and I think this should boost your confidence a little bit more, because it's like, okay, USC is sort of putting together a contingency plan. And I would say in most cases, you don't really put together a contingency plan like this unless you have to, right? Like there's a receiver where it's like, okay, he's kind of been iffy on his commitment. He's kind of been ghosting us here or there. We're going to start reaching out to other guys. If you have a quarterback that's been committed for a year, I don't imagine you pursue another quarterback this heavily, this late in the game, because obviously, even though it's signing day is not for months away, right? Quarterback's one of those positions where, for the most part, they all like to get their recruitments settled. They all want to sort of focus on their senior seasons and just get that out of the way. It's not the same for all positions, but quarterbacks, it's pretty common to see them committed before the start of their season. So USC sort of trying to get back in the mix for another quarterback could mean everything for Colorado, or at least it means that they have a chance. Now, I saw a lot of people getting all jazzed up about On3's recruiting prediction machine, because it currently gives Colorado a 17.4% chance of landing or flipping Julian Lewis from Colorado. Now, Georgia had a 21.4% chance of landing him. Auburn had a 9.6% chance. I would say take this with a grain of salt, because On3's recruiting prediction machine, is based off of a lot of different factors. It's based off of expert predictions, which there are no expert predictions for Julian at On3 at this time. It's based off of history and trends, social media stuff. And so it's an AI generated prediction machine. So it's not always indicative of what's going to happen. And just to give you guys an example, this isn't me shooting you down. Just to give you guys an example, Jordan Seaton, 5-star offensive tackle at Colorado, is probably going to start at left tackle, right? Colorado had a 3.4% chance of landing him, according to the recruiting prediction machine. Ohio State had a 32.4%. Tennessee had a 27.9%. And Alabama, who I don't think was really in the mix at the end there, 20.6%. So, and Maryland wasn't even listed. And there was a late push for Maryland to sort of land him, right? So you have to take it with a grain of salt. Now, I think there's more weight in the fact that that USC is possibly looking for another quarterback than there is in the On3's recruiting prediction machine. If like Steve Wiltfong dropped a prediction, I'd be like, okay, it's happening. But since it's just the AI generated sort of based off trends and data analysis, we have to be careful with what we sort of buy into. Now, what does Julian Lewis bring to Colorado if they get him? Well, he's the poster child for their class, right? I think if Colorado lands him, players are going to want to team up with him. He's got influence. He's been in the Elite 11. He's done all the rivals camps and stuff like that. So Julian Lewis is a pretty big deal in this class. I would say he's one of the more popular players in this class. And so you have to sort of, if you're Colorado, you put a full court press on, and I'm sure Colorado has already done this. This isn't probably anything new, but they need to put on a full court press and be like, hey, you are the future of our program. You want to play right away, you will have a chance to start right away here. USC, they brought in the UNLV transfer. He's good. He's going to start after Miller Moss leaves. He's that good. Auburn, their quarterback situation's iffy, right? Are they going to go back to one of their other guys? They brought in some younger recruits the past couple years where it's like, are those guys ready to take the next job? Are they going to sort of lean on the transfer portal? Because Auburn has brought in Peyton Thorne was from the transfer portal, right? They've brought in transfers before. They aren't afraid. Robbie Ashford, he was someone that transferred in from Oregon. And so it's one of those things where you have to sort of, like, if Julian Lewis is your guy, this is me speaking in Colorado, and I think he is their guy, you have to make it so he cannot turn you down. Because right now, I'm hearing a lot more about Auburn than I am about Colorado. Now, obviously, I feel like when Colorado lands these big recruits, there's always like a hidden element factor to it. Like when Travis Hunter committed to Jackson State, obviously that's not Colorado, but Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, was the one recruiting him and stuff like that. There's like a hidden element where it's like, okay, this is random out of the blue, but no one's really thinks that's going to happen. Same thing with Cormani McClain, out of the blue, right? Same thing with Jordan Seaton. Colorado kind of came out of the blue. Maryland made a late push. Ohio State was always after him. And then he shocked the country and went to Colorado. And so I think it's going to be a very quiet process. And I feel like Julian Lewis is going to play the game. Like he has been playing this recruiting game quite well on his end. He'll use a Colorado football or he'll wear Colorado shorts and then use an Auburn football and then wear an Indiana shirt or something. Like he knows what he's doing. I do think if you're a Colorado fan, you have to be very eager with this development that USC is sort of looking elsewhere. But you also need Colorado to sort of, they need to come through here. They need a full court press, throw all. If you're playing EA Sports College Football 25, excuse me, this is a send the house moment, and this is a make a hard pitch, right? Like we are talking about playing time. We are talking about the projection of our program. We are talking about just how popular he could be at Colorado. We're talking about his NIL opportunity. We're talking about how we see him in this offense. You are pulling out all the stops to make sure that Julian Lewis thinks Colorado is the best, and not only the best option for him, but the only option for him. And so I think it's a really interesting recruitment, and we're just going to have to wait and see. But this is a big development in sort of this Colorado recruiting pursuit because obviously they need a very good replacement. They need a quarterback that could sort of, I want to say, pick up where Shador left off, but they do need someone who could kind of hold that mantle or sort of keep the trends going. When we come back, we're going to be talking about the biggest storylines of fall camp ahead of the season because football is coming. This episode of Locked On Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at Ibotta. Are you taking that dream vacation this summer but dreading the cost? With Ibotta, you get cash back on all your purchases, so you could spend more time making memories this summer and less time dreaming about them. Ibotta is a free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibotta user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or a fancy dinner you've been craving, a little date night. So make sure to check out Ibotta. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying or just by using the code Locked On College when you register. So just go to the App Store or Google Play and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code Locked On College. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code Locked On College. This episode of Locked On Buffs is also brought to you by our sponsors over at Factor Meals. Let me tell you about Factor Meals because they got some really good food. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up with them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. Make today the day you kickstart a new health routine. What are you waiting for? With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from, every week you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this May with dietitian approved meals and ingredients that you could trust. Like summer's approaching, you got to be ready, right? Make your day delicious from breakfast to dessert. You stay fueled with easy and nutritious options. Enjoy effortless support for your lifestyle, choosing from 6 menu preferences to help you manage calories, maximize protein intake, avoid meat, or simply eat a well-balanced diet. Head to factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 and use code LOCKEDONCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That's code LOCKEDONCollege50 at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Make sure to go check out Factor Meals. Welcome back to Locked On Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me part of your routine, making me your first listen of the day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And for your second listen of the day, make sure to go check out Locked On Big 12. Drake Toll, he's got everything cooking about all the latest Big 12 news over there. So make sure to go check him out, our good friend of the show. Let's talk about the biggest storylines of Colorado's fall camp, I guess you could say, because let's just be real. It's a big season for Colorado. They have a lot going on. They have a lot on the line. They have a lot to prove, a lot to improve on. And so these are the things that we are all watching for. Starting with, and this is the obvious one. This is a big one. Who is going to emerge across that offensive line? It's going to be 5 new starters, maybe 4.5 if you count Hank Zelinkas, who started some games last year. Right? They bring in around 11 new guys total, counting Seton, or around 11, 12, counting the incoming recruits, and then they have the transfers. They just have so many new guys, right? And George Seton is going to be he's going to be pushed. They bring in guys like Peyton Kirkland from Texas, Zach Owens from Clemson. Like, those guys didn't come to sit the bench, right? All of these guys that came in, they all provide depth, but they all think they're going to start. That's how it works. And so who's going to set themselves apart and sort of protect Shedeur? Because obviously they have that hashtag DT2, don't touch 2, aka don't touch Shedeur. I think that's a big issue, or not issue, but that's what we're looking out for. Like, who's going to be protecting Shedeur? Who's going to be that starting 5 once they take the field against North Dakota State later this month, or in a month. It's almost August, right? Let's go to the number 2, second one, biggest storyline of the offseason. Who wins that running back battle? Right now, as of a couple of days ago, Deion Sanders said Charlie Offerdahl was the starting running back. And this is nothing against Charlie Offerdahl, former walk-on. He's earned the stripes. He's earned everything that's came his way. They didn't bring in Dallin Hayden. They did not bring in the Arkansas transfer. They did not bring in Michael Welch for him to be the starter. Now, this isn't me saying that I don't think Charlie Offerdahl is talented, but they brought in all these talented guys to start, to compete, to contend for the starting role. We learned today, when Coach Flea was talking to the media, we learned today that they're going to be trotting out 2 backs a lot. Like, there's going to be a lot of 2-back rotations. There's going to be a lot of, okay, you get this drive, we're going to rotate. And so who's going to crack that top 2? I think that's really interesting to look out for. I also think you have to look at, and this is a storyline that I've been watching out for personally. A lot of people don't like this storyline, but it is a storyline nonetheless. What does Travis Hunter's role look like, right? Is he a receiver? Is he going? We know he's a 2-way star. We know that. We know Coach Prime wants him to be used on both sides of the field. But is there a hint of, like, okay, if you play one drive in offense, you're sitting the next defensive drive and the next offensive drive so you can be fresh for defense? Or what is the combination? Or are they just going to be like, you know what, Travis, you tell us when you're not ready and we'll take you out? I don't think that's the way to do it. I think he should probably alternate offense, defense, and then once, or at least situational. Like, I don't think there's a need for him to be playing the most snaps in the country. I just don't. I think that's how you get him tired. I think that's how you put him in position to get injured more. Obviously, his injury last year was a freak thing, but still, what is his role? Because they have a lot of really good receivers. They have a couple really good corners that they brought in via the portal. So what do they do to sort of make sure that Travis Hunter is always readily available? And then lastly, what does this defensive line look like, right? I'll give you 2 more because I just thought of another one that I think is an overlooked one. Starting with the defensive line, what does the unit look like? What is the combination, right? You have a guy like Shane Cokes, who's a team leader last year. Does he remain in the starting unit or does he get pushed back? Amari McNeil, someone who I think played well considering the situation last year. Does he sort of hold on to a starting job? Or is it going to be like guys like BJ Green? You got Samuel Kunalola, Deion Hayes. You have all these talents. The block bully, he's there too, the Houston transfer. You have all these talents, right? And it's like, okay, who's gonna make the biggest leap? Anquin Barnes, Quincy Wiggins, like who's gonna figure it out and put it together before everyone else? And who's gonna be like, you can't take me off the field because I'm just too big of a playmaker, coach. Like that's a problem you want to have. You don't want to have a problem where it's like, oh, well, we're pretty even. Like the problem you want to have is people not standing out, because then at that point it's like, we're gonna have the same problems we did last year. And then lastly, backup quarterback. Heaven forbid, God forbid, Shedeur Sanders goes down with an injury. He did against Washington State last year, right? Obviously, a lot of that was mostly due to the offensive line being as terrible as it was. But nonetheless, who is going to step up and be that next quarterback? Is it Ryan Staub? I thought he did phenomenal against Utah when he had a full week to prepare. I thought he did well, right? Walter Taylor, he's a dual threat guy, big athletic dude, big arm, accuracy problems. The Wade twin, also athletic. I'm told he's like he has tight end written all over him, but he's still trying it out, a quarterback, right? So who makes it work? Like who makes the coaches be like, you know what? Like Destin Wade, are you the guy that steps up and is like, you know what? This is my time to shine. This is my opportunity, and no one's taking it from me. So we just have to wait and see. Those are my biggest, I would say, storylines to look out for this fall or this summer, because it's a big deal. We got football's coming. Colorado's got to be ready for that week 1 game against North Dakota State. When we come back, Colorado updated their roster, and I have some big takeaways, and you guys won't want to miss them. So stay tuned. This episode of Locked on Buffs is brought to you by our sponsors over at FanDuel. And let me tell you about FanDuel, because they got some really, really cool deals. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sporting like we want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head over to FanDuel and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel is official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Welcome back to Locked on Buffs. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day. Make me your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. Let's talk about some takeaways from the roster. We'll call it a reveal, I guess you could say, right? So I think that this new team is very exciting, and there's just some really, really interesting aspects that stood out to me. One, we're going to start with a random one. Walter Taylor, the third quarterback from Vanderbilt, transferred in, 6'5", 235. He's been listed everywhere from 6'7" to 6'8". We finally got a confirmed height. It is 6'5", and so pretty athletic dude. Trevor Woods has reportedly gained a lot of weight. He's well over 200 pounds after playing in the 190 to 180 something range this past season. Says he's bigger. I feel like that's a pretty big deal, and I think you have to sort of be pleased with that. Jalen Wester still listed at 205, which I thought was interesting. Would have liked to see him get a little bit bigger, but obviously, as Dalton from PFF, when he came on the show last week, said his size doesn't matter because he has such a knack for being in the right spot at the right time. Savion Riley, safety, transferred in from Vanderbilt, I believe. Let me confirm. I feel it. Or did he transfer in from Miami? I'm all over the place. Miami and Vanderbilt. That's what it was. Woof. All over the place. Here I am. I was right in both ways. I just don't remember school he was at recently. He transferred to Vanderbilt, or from Vanderbilt to Miami. Now he's at Colorado. Big dude, 6'2", 200 pounds. Travis Hunter listed at 185. I feel like he'd have to get a little bit bigger to sustain some of what they're asking of him. Like, I think he should be a little bit bigger, but hey, Travis Hunter, I think he's a dog. I think he'll be ready for anything that comes his way. Let's continue on with my observations. because I like to scroll through the team rosters and be like, okay, what do we know about these guys, right? Because the team rosters are always generous. I think I talked to one coach. It was like every team is adding an inch or two and adding 10 to 15 pounds if they want. Shane Cokes transferred in from the Ivy League last year, listed at 6'3", 275. Chidozie Nwankwo, 5'11", 290. He's a big dude. I think he's going to sort of shock a lot of people because he's a big dude weight-wise, but not a big dude height-wise, and he's a strong man who's going to get things going. Anquin Barnes, 6'5", 315. Brandon Davis-Swain, the freshman, 6'4", 260. Torian Carter, 6'3", 303 pounds. Amari McNeil, 6'4", 295, almost 300 pounds. So this defense line is looking big, and I think that's one of my big observations thus far, is they are big. And then receiver-wise, you have Terrell Timmons, who's 6'2", and then you also have Will Shepard, 6'3". They have some really big receivers that they have at their disposal, which I think is a pretty big deal. I think sort of Shedeur Sanders is going to want to throw it up to some of these guys, right? Take a chance here, take a chance there. And I think there's a lot of potential in that receiver room. Johnny Chaney from Florida A&M, 6'2", 230 pounds, number 22, right? Awesome. I think under the radar addition from Florida A&M, 6'2", 230. I think he's a guy that could probably make things work and then get in the mix at linebacker, maybe even start. And then Isaiah Augusta from Arkansas, 6'2", 210 pounds. So a running back that's ginormous. He's going to be sort of a matchup nightmare or a meet me in the A gap type of guy that defenses are not going to love. Michael Welch, little ball muscle, 5'9", 205. So Colorado has a lot of guys who've gotten a lot bigger, a lot stronger. And I think overall, when I look at this roster, they just have a lot more size than they did last year. Like Peyton Kirkland from Texas, 6'6", 350 pounds. Wyatt Hummel, 6'6", 315 pounds. Khalil Benson, 305 pounds, 6'6". They have a lot more size. They're going to have a lot more speed on the outside, a lot more size of receiver. This Colorado team is going to be a really interesting team to watch. I can't wait to cover it every step of the way, and I hope you guys join me for that coverage every step of the way. Make sure to like, subscribe, and follow. I appreciate you guys for tuning in every single day, making me your first listen of the day. This has been another episode of Locked on Buffs, and I will see you guys tomorrow.